What's up, my friends? Paul here, and welcome to The Beautiful Mess. I'm a content creator, YouTuber, podcaster, and super excited to have you on this episode. So in this episode, I thought we'd do a quick recap of what The Beautiful Mess is. Since we're on episode 25, hard to believe we've made it to, what is this, May of 2022. A lot of awesome things are happening. And so like when I first started this podcast with Spencer, we didn't have a name. And so we started Messy. And we just kind of realized that was a good indicator of, things that other people could benefit from. It's just this idea of starting things messy, starting before you're ready. And just being okay with embracing the good and, learning from the mistakes that you make and just growing from those experiences. And as we explored in the last episode 24, about the growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, and that is what it's all about. It's like, if you have a fixed mindset, you think you're stuck where you are. Whereas when you have that growth mindset, you realize that starting messy and just going for something even before you're ready is often the best way to get results and to move forward. However, there are hurdles when you do any endeavor. I'm thinking in particular the creative endeavor, since that's what I do day in and day out. And like I mentioned, kind of going back in history of the TBM show, The Beautiful Mess, I'm kind of described my journey from being a musician to now creating content professionally. And so I'm just excited to share that with you today. So basically, I managed to make this transition. I kind of felt like I was getting stuck in the role that I was at a church. And with that, it was a great job, great people to work with, great environment. So a lot of great things. However, I was creatively being burnt out. I just felt like I was kind of hitting like a dead end. And I just didn't feel like my creative juices, if you will, like it just didn't feel like I was able to develop them and feel like it was a good environment or not environment, but like a good space for me to like feel like I had the energy and the enthusiasm to pursue these creative things outside of my job. And as the book Overlap by Sean West talks about it, it's like you can get into this position where you're kind of in this golden handcuffs where like you have this great day job, like it's wonderful, like the people are great and everything, but you just are burnt out. You just don't have that energy, the fire, the enthusiasm to work on the things that you're truly passionate about. And at that point, you kind of have to reassess things. You kind of have to take a step back and say, hey, I thought this was what I was supposed to be doing. Like, you usually don't go for a job because it's a terrible situation, unless, sometimes there's reality. You need to put food on the table, and that's important. And I don't recommend you just jump ship and hope that things will work out. You better have at least like a kind of a parachute plan or a way to overlap into something that you love without stressing yourself out more than you need to, because it can be stressful making changes in life. It definitely was when we moved here to Chattanooga, because basically when we got here, we had to rent an apartment, and with little kids, that was a little hectic. We managed to make it work for a while, but it wasn't ideal. I definitely felt like there were times where we were just like so ready to move into a house. And, it took a while since the housing market was so, things would get listed, they'd sell really, really quick. And we try our best. We go see tons of listings, and, we started to dread the kind of like the weekends. It was like, we're just going to look at houses again. and you just comb for houses. But now we've been able to settle down, and that's been a great relief and a great joy to now have a place to call home. That's not very, transitional, where some of your stuff is in storage, and yeah, that's never fun. But it's all part of the growth. It's all part of growing. And, if it weren't for that, again, if it weren't for that time, I would not, who knows, I might not even be recording this podcast, because I started my YouTube channel during that time in the apartment. And then I also, because of that YouTube channel, was probably inspired to reach out to my good friend Spencer, who then led us to starting this podcast. So you never know what will happen. So embrace the messiness of your life. But like I said, there are times when you feel burnt out. And that's what we're going to talk about in this episode, is kind of recognizing the signs of burnout and what you can do to kind of get recharged and find energy to keep going, So when you feel like you're no longer excited about the work you do, that's a good indicator that you're burnt out. If you feel like there's no time for something that you love, that's a good indicator that either you don't have time or you're just burnt out. But more or less, you probably are burnt out if you don't have any time. You're probably spending more time on things like social media that might not be as enriching. But that could be related to just being burnt out at work. You just I can't, I don't feel the energy, the drive to do anything but scroll on TikTok or whatever. And then, or if you feel like you're just stressed all the time, you just feel like there's always like a deadline coming up. There's always something that's keeping you away from getting to where you need to go. So I like to think of creative burnout in two ways. You kind of have your big B burnout, which was kind of what I was experiencing in my job, where I just felt like I wasn't getting anywhere creatively. And then you have your little B burnout, where it's just like, you just have like maybe it's a day, maybe it's a week, maybe it's a month, where you just feel like you're out of sorts and you just don't know what to do. Or you just don't feel inspired or energized by the work that you do. So I think those are some elements of the creative burnout. So what can you do to kind of deal with creative burnout? There's a couple of things that I recommend. Is first, just take a step back. Don't feel like you have to keep running, because sometimes when you just get in that mode, you're just like running. You just end up in a place that you didn't intend to go. You just all of a sudden you're like, wait, where am I going? So it's just good to take a step back. Maybe you take a day where you can reevaluate your priorities. Maybe you've been going and you thought that this was what you loved, but you just you end up not loving it, and you just haven't had time to reevaluate what you're doing to see that actually maybe I'd be better off, spending my time doing this other thing that I'm also very passionate about, that probably won't burn myself out. And reset your priorities. I think back to when 2020 happened and everything was getting closed down, that really made people rethink their priorities. And to some degree, I mean, obviously, the sickness, the illness that people went through was not good for those people. But at the same time, for other people, it kind of gave people the chance to step back a little and reevaluate their lives as a whole. Maybe it gave them because a lot of people were worried and scared. Maybe they got the kind of that deathbed, the graveyard, mentality of if my life ended tomorrow, which, nothing's guaranteed in this life. I don't know if I've got tomorrow or not. But just having that mentality that if I were to go tomorrow, what would be most important to me? I think that like all of a sudden everything kind of clicks into place, because all of a sudden you're like, my time here is finite on earth. And so what am I going to do to make the most of it? So highly recommend kind of assessing where you're headed and what your priorities are set towards. And the other thing is just kind of go back to the basics. Like especially if you're feeling super stressed, like maybe cut down on what you're saying yes to. Maybe take a break from something that you committed to. Just say, hey, I love helping you with this one thing, but I just need to take maybe a month off. And then I'll reevaluate whether I can continue or not. So reevaluate what you're committed to. And then just go back to the basics. Make sure you're sleeping enough. It's recommended about 8 hours of sleep. Super important. I've read many books about sleep. Can't speak highly enough of it. Sometimes I feel like I need more of that, but either way, I can recommend it. I can highly recommend it, because whenever I get in a good rhythm of going to bed at a usual time, highly recommend. It's a beautiful mess, so I'll happily admit that sometimes that's messy for me, but get some sleep. Eat healthy. Don't just, eat Snickers. What is it? You're hungry, eat a Snickers. But eat some healthy food. I know that sometimes, you're either traveling or you're going places, and sometimes your food isn't the healthiest, but sometimes you can pick that. You can go out of your way to go to a restaurant that maybe has a little bit healthier food. If you can do that, great. And then exercise. Big fan of, getting out there. I must say the days that I exercise are kind of my favorite, because like, especially when I get out first thing in the morning, I work out, and you just feel like you've accomplished something at the beginning of the day. So just try to schedule that into your life, like maybe 3, 4, 5 times a week, where you just, wake up, get going, work out. That's a great way to start the day, get the juices flowing, and then reconnect with your friends. Maybe there's a friend that you haven't called in a long time. Just pick up the phone, maybe even now, text them, say, hey, let's get together for coffee. Let's chat. I know it's been a while, because human connection is super important. We are social beings. We are not meant to live on an island. So I highly recommend reaching out to your friends and, just connecting with them. So the other thing is just give yourself a break. Just, be okay, like taking a break here and there. And I highly recommend scheduling in margin time. You need rest time, just in general. Like even in like CrossFit, where it's super intense, they often have rest times scheduled into most of their workouts, not all of them. But yeah, sometimes it's like nice when you have like this thing where you're running or rowing or biking for X amount of time, and then all of a sudden you get this rest period. It's like, it's like the payoff after you like worked real hard. You're like working as hard as you can, and you're like, I know that as soon as I hit this, I get to rest for, a couple minutes, and then I'm back at it. But, like the same thing with your creative work or whatever work you're doing. Sometimes you just need to take some time to rest, schedule in margin or breaks in your calendars so that I'm not going to be working on something. I'm going to be doing something that either I'm excited to do, passionate about, but something that kind of fills you up. So yeah, create habits built into your schedule to give yourself recharge time, so that you that like it's just going to become part of your regular schedule. And so that should help with burnout. So build in habits and that could be different based on you. I mean, do you enjoy taking a walk in nature? Do that. Do you enjoy reading books? Do that. Do you enjoy playing video games? Maybe do that. Do you enjoy going out and watching a movie? Whatever it is, like, think about it. Like, what is it that you feel most alive when you're able to do certain things? Like, you can usually pinpoint a couple things here or there. And then just realize that life is messy and roll with the punches and keep going. You can do it. You can do it. I believe in you. Yeah. And just realize that, like, you can get through this. YouTubers, like, that they've definitely reported like episodes of creative burnout. It's really interesting to hear their cases, and some of them, you know, they might take a longer break from YouTube. Some of them just take smaller breaks. It just depends. But I mean, it just goes to show you that it's kind of like a human basic need is like just rest. Yeah. So yeah, make sure you get that rest. And then the other thing is, like, just set aside a certain amount of time that you're going to work towards maybe your creative project. And that way, you know, you can just sit down, and even if you're not like necessarily directly working on your project, like, you could do something related to it. Maybe you read a book based on it, watch a YouTube video, get inspired, listen to music. It doesn't have to be necessarily based directly. Like, you don't have to, for example, if you're an artist, you don't have to necessarily just paint for like 2 hours straight. But instead, you know, you could spend that time getting inspired or dreaming up maybe your next piece that you'll do. So yeah, take that for all it's worth. Well, hey friends, it's been a joy and a pleasure as always to have you on the Messy Show, the Messy Fam, and the Messy Fam. If you want to join the Messy Fam, I would love it. All you have to do is subscribe, follow, rate, review wherever you can. And in fact, if you wouldn't mind, I think we've got about 10, 11 ratings maybe now on Apple Podcasts. If you are an Apple Podcasts person, please leave us a review. Let us know. I love looking at those. And then also on Spotify, if you're a Spotifyer, drop us a rating there. Would love to hear from you. Hey fans, till next time, stay messy.